And welcome to Flightdeck Live. I am Tim Capper, along with my co-host and good buddy, Cliffy T. Pine. How are you, bud?
Hey. Well, preseason's finished now. Now comes the easiest part of any coach's job, the cuts.
Yeah, if your name was Homer Simpson.
Yes.
Yeah. Alouettes.
I can't cut all of you, but I have cut a lot of you.
That's right. So, Cliff, you're cut. Yeah. Alouettes lose 19-13 to the Ottawa Red Blacks in Ottawa. This is a weird way to say the thing to say. The Alouettes snapped their 4-game preseason winning streak.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were trying to do something that they hadn't done since 79-80, which is have 2 back-to-back undefeated preseasons. Yeah. But again, it's preseason. But we really, I'm glad we didn't go to this game in Ottawa. There were a lot of positives that we saw from the Alouettes team. There were a lot more negatives this week than there was last, and it's I as a supporter and a media member, it's we want to say, we're not necessarily frustrated in the team. It's just interesting to see what happened tonight in Ottawa. The players who did play, the players who didn't play, which I think is a huge thing also. But they, as you said, coaching staff has a lot of work when it comes to what they're going to do.
Yeah, and let's not forget the final roster has to be turned in, I believe, by midnight tomorrow. So, I mean, essentially, Montreal's got to start doing the evaluation pretty much on the bus, or I don't know if they took the plane to Ottawa or not, but I don't know how they got to Ottawa. But in any event, they've got to start doing their evaluation now, like on the way home, and then probably even into the night they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do, because obviously if whoever didn't make the trip to Ottawa is safe, you could almost make the argument that everybody else is in contention as far as being cut goes. So it's funny, if you didn't play in this game, I think your job is safe. If you did play in this game, the possibility is there that you may be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and it's funny when we look at the stats from last week versus this week, a lot of the guys who really stood out and played quite a few quarters. Really, it's so weird. I guess it was just a choice of quarterbacks tonight, and I guess maybe the vanilla play calling and stuff like that. I mean, quite a few times throughout the game, you and I were texting back and forth, and it was just a matter of, okay, we've seen enough of X, we've seen enough of Y. Let's see somebody else. But going into the game itself, let's look at something positive though. With all honesty, let's look at the first half. It wasn't pretty as far as offensively for either team, really. The Alouettes were down 6-3 at halftime. But you got to admit, for this Alouettes team who did not, they really weren't playing the ones. And I really question if they were playing the 1.5s or the two, or the 2s. But considering what they did versus Drew Brown and only holding them to 6 points, that was a pretty damn good half from this Alouettes team.
Yeah, I would be very excited as an Alouettes fan to see that kind of effort in the first half was definitely very encouraging. And if I'm a Red Blacks fan, I'm just sitting there going, like, you pretty much left most of your starters. Like, this was their dress rehearsal game, in the sense that they got to put their best foot forward now, and their bubble players, with their limited reps, they had to make some magic happen. And I think some did and some didn't. And the fact that most of the starters had stayed in the game pretty much throughout the first half, which kind of makes sense, because actually, I completely forgot about this. Ottawa's got the first week bye.
Yeah.
So I guess that's another reason why they left Drew Brown and a lot of the starters in longer than what you normally would in a preseason game, because essentially they need these reps because they're not playing next week. So I kind of get it in that regards, and compare that to Montreal, who their starters stayed at home, and there are certain players that they wanted to see more out of, and those players, I think, they got a great opportunity to show what they could do, or ultimately what they could not do, and ultimately it's on the players to step up when the time comes. Some did, some didn't, and that's going to make the difference when it comes down to cut time.
That's true. And you look at the stats themselves. I mean, in the first half, Caleb Evans, man, I mean, he was only 4 of 6 for 32 yards. 4 of 6 for 32 yards from, which I'm going to say right now, I'm going to say is our number 3. Because I just found it really weird that Davis Alexander did not get a single rep tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he went to Ottawa. He dressed. He had his helmet on in the second half. It looked like you would have thought he would have gotten some action, but no, it was Caleb Evans to start and James Morgan to basically play out the rest of the game. And a little surprising, I'm not going to lie, because I mean, especially after the outstanding effort Davis had last week in Montreal for the first preseason game, you figure, okay, you'd want to build on that a little bit, at least give him something. I figure, okay, once they went to Morgan, I thought, okay, that's interesting. Let's to be fair, he only had, I think, 2 reps at quarterback last week. Morgan did. I mean, he had very, very little time to show what he could or couldn't do. So I understood giving him the opportunity to really show what he's all about. And for Davis, I just thought, well, surely they'll give him at least the fourth quarter, something. I don't think it was so important for Montreal to win this game. I'm pretty sure it would have been nice for them, but it really was about talent evaluation. So that to me says Davis is more than safe. He's got nothing to worry about. I think they definitely see big things for him, and why go into this game then? It essentially means nothing in the standings and gives them a chance to see whether both Caleb Evans and James Morgan, who we feel are the 3-4 in this quarterback room, see what they can do, if anything. And well, we saw tonight. There's some good stuff and some not so good stuff from both quarterbacks.
Yeah. Any good things that you want to take away from the first half? Because we know we have a lot to talk about in that second half. But I mean, any positives? I mean, other than the Alouettes actually escaping a punt return for a touchdown, that was called back because of the holding penalty on the Red Blacks. So with the Owls could have been down even more at half. Any other positives that you could potentially take away from that very anemic first half?
Najee Murray with one hell of an interception. I mean, and back like he never left. That was a beautiful thing. We didn't see him play against Toronto last week, but wow. I mean, no worries there. I mean, what are the injury woes he had last year that pretty much kept him off the field? You knew he was raring to come back. He was raring to show what he can do. And I mean, pretty basic interception, not going to lie, but it doesn't matter. It
tip
shows
drill.
Once again.
I love them. They're tip drills. I'll take a tip drill interception any day.
And I'm sure if you were to ask Najee, he'd say the exact same thing. And listen, it all goes on the stat sheet, right? And to me, I think that was something that he had to have. I mean, I think his job, for the most part, is safe. I don't think there's any worries there. I think he's going to be a big part of the secondary for the Alouettes again. So but I'm sure it felt good for him to be on the field, contributing, and basically stopping Ottawa dead in their tracks with that absolutely beautiful play.
There's this one play I think that stood out to me the most in the first half. After the great game that he had last week, Nafis Lyon got burned badly on one play. I mean, it wasn't even close. It was like, are you a rookie out there? I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, as outstanding as he was last week, he looked very ordinary this week. And again, I don't think his job's in trouble either, but at the same time, you only get a finite number of reps to show what you can do. And that was definitely not the best we've seen out of Nafis Lyon. But once again, I think his job is safe. It was just just a bad day at the office in that instance. Otherwise, he was fine.
What were your thoughts on the overall offense or defense? We said the defense was amazing. We didn't get a sack, I don't think, the entire game, but I think the offense just was so bad in that first half. I mean, isn't it? And I'm trying to remember, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Cliff. I think for the last 2 out of 3 preseasons, No, actually, since he's been here, he's only been here for that long. Caleb really did not have a very good preseason last year either, did he?
It wasn't outstanding. Like there wasn't a lot of holy cow moments as far as his play goes. Like nothing that would suggest that okay, well, he's good in short yardage and that's what he's going to be. And to the fact that we were even surprised that when Cody Fajardo went down to injury last year, it was Caleb Evans who stepped in. And yeah, he won 2 games against Ottawa. One of those being against Ottawa, incredibly enough, his former team. What made me laugh though is regardless of what his stats were this evening, Caleb Evans was definitely 100 for 100 when it comes to chirping because he was.
God, yeah, I know.
He was flapping his beak a little bit at the Ottawa bench, and I guess despite signing with Montreal as a free agent, being a part of the Grey Cup winning team, I guess there's still a little bit of hurt feelings, a little bit of soreness from his time in Ottawa and how it didn't end the way maybe he felt it should have. So kind of interesting, kind of amusing. At the same time, though, I'm sitting there like, really, you're chirping during a preseason game? Like, maybe don't. I mean, unless you're putting up like 4 or 5 touchdowns in your limited reps, maybe don't chirp during preseason.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at the second half. The Alouettes were outscored in the second half, 13-10. Really, the second half. There's some interesting things that happened in the second half, but ultimately, obviously, that's what was the downfall of the Alouettes in this preseason finale. Let's see. Again, the ineptness at the 3rd and short. The running game did pair crap a little bit more.
I have to say, Stevie Scott definitely made the most of his opportunities. With no Walter Fletcher, no Jeshua Antwi, or Sean Thomas Erlington playing this evening, it was the youngsters that had to go out there and show their stuff. And Stevie Scott, he was running angry at some points, and that's fantastic. I mean, that's someone who wants very much to be on this team, someone who really feels he's got something to prove, and I'm here for that all day long. I definitely think Stevie Scott made a very solid argument for himself to at least, if nothing else, be on the practice roster because, we've got 3 studs at running back as it stands right now with CFL experience, but all it takes is one injury, and all of a sudden, the apple cart gets upset, and you're scrambling. But if you've got a Stevie Scott on the practice roster, at least, that's a very good thing as far as I'm concerned. So I think he really made his case, and definitely is someone that I think needs to be considered and still be a member of this team after Sunday.
Yeah, and by the way, we're doing this on the fly here, just to let you know, Cliff. The official stats have come in from the CFL, so they have been sent to you, so you could use them for reference. So go ahead there, bud. Just want to let you know. Also, it's and I guess we can give this to. Not used to the game itself, or just trying to get used to the game a little bit more. But Morgan's interception that led to basically what was the winning touchdown on that interception, 101-yard interception return for a touchdown. That basically was the game there. The horrible 3rd and short aside, which I think they ended up.
Well, which one? There's a couple.
I'm saying, yeah, I know there's a couple, but we got the one reprieve late in the 4th quarter on Jason Moss going 2 for 2 when it comes to challenges in the preseason. Yeah, but it was obvious. But still, it is a throw. I think if a more seasoned quarterback had been out there, I don't think Morgan would not have made that throw. But it was you still not that close. I mean, you're knocking on the goal line, for Christ's sake, and it's just like, why?
And what was more disappointing was James Morgan threw a beautiful pass to Charleston Rambo. Like, he just hucked it downfield, and Rambo made an absolutely outstanding catch. Like, that's another name that I think is going to definitely be well into consideration for staying on this team for sure, is Charleston Rambo. He made plays happen. He didn't make a whole lot of plays happen, but the opportunities that he got, he definitely made the most of, and definitely looked good in camp, and looked good, as far as I'm concerned, looked really good in both preseason games. So I definitely think you can make an argument for him to stay on this team. But yeah, it's just so unfortunate after an outstanding play like that. You're like, okay, there's something here. There's something really, really to like with James Morgan, and looks like he's got it. Like, maybe he's going to engineer his first touchdown drive. And then, yeah, no, to be fair, the ball that he threw into traffic got tipped just a little bit, and unfortunately, that ultimately led into a pick six. These things happen, and again, better that they happen now in the preseason when you go work on that sort of thing versus in the Grey Cup, for example. I mean, that's it is what it is.
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention about the first half, but they seemed to get into gear in the second. Again, it was the no yards penalties, but they were only called for one, and it seemed like for the rest of the game they got that corrected. So I got a feeling that they got yelled at just a touch. Is it now? I understand who was in the game for the O line, but failing at so many third and shorts, does that concern you, or is that, as I said, is that just something based off of players who don't have that much experience when it comes to the third and short scrum, I guess we could call it?
Yeah, it's a tough call to make. I mean, I'm very surprised because with James Morgan's measurables, like he's, I think, 6'4", a little over 200 pounds. I mean, like he's got the build, like almost like a Caleb Evans, as far as being able to push and get that, get that extra yard needed for the first down. But you also need your O-line to be able to block for you as well in order to have that opportunity. And actually, it's funny that there was that one bobbled snap to Morgan, which he pretty much had to pick up off the ground and try to dive for the first down. And unfortunately, he's just a little short.
Yeah.
Again, these are things that happen in preseason, and there's no real blame to be had. I mean, it's just an unfortunate series that happened. But some of the other third and shorts that happened where the Alouettes just turned the ball over on downs, it just felt like, oh gosh, like it's not a good look, especially when this is your job audition. Like this is what you're trying to prove that you belong on this team, that you want to be a part of this team, be it practice roster or on the actual roster itself. And efforts like that, coaches are looking. Luc Brodeur-Jourdain is looking at that and just not. He cannot be happy with the effort that a lot of his younger O linemen gave this evening. It was not terrible, but still not great, especially like a lot of those guys for sure are on the bubble, because I think maybe there's 2 or 3 starting offensive linemen that made the trip to Ottawa and played in the first half. The rest was all the the rookies and other youngsters trying to make this squad. Like I said, not the best look. I mean, there's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, could Morgan have tried a little bit harder? It's hard to say. Maybe he was making the effort and it just ran into a wall. That happens too. I mean, it's tough. It's just unfortunate because all Alouettes fans are going to see is you didn't keep the drive going. It just stopped dead, and you gave Ottawa great field position to try and do something with.
Yeah, exactly. They were 2 for 4 on the night on third down attempts. It actually was. It would have been, I think, 2 for 5, but 1 because of the one PI late in the fourth quarter gave him a new set of downs. So still didn't look good. I mean, because there was no rush. They could not get anything going forward when it came to getting the quarterbacks through. So,
I mean, give James Morgan credit. He eventually did score a touchdown. So, I mean, he's at least got that on the books. So,
yeah, exactly.
Do I think his performance tonight is going to cost him a job on the Alouettes? No, I don't think it's going to give a resounding yes. He absolutely has to be on the team. I mean, it's clear that Montreal is going to have a lot to think about. The fact that they've got 4 quarterbacks essentially in camp doesn't guarantee necessarily that Morgan will make the team, but give him credit. I mean, he definitely tried his very best to engineer a game-winning drive. It just
his arm strength, though, Cliff. I was like, okay, you're doing well, but it's like he had no arm strength. If you had a Davis Alexander in there or a Cody Fitzgerald, we know how far that ball was going to go. It was like nothing. There's like nothing on it.
Not much, especially compared to, and we've talked about this too, is that in training camp sessions, everybody looks good, right? He looked really good in training. Like he had the zip on the ball. He put a lot behind it. I mean, he was throwing darts out there in training camp. But once again, you're going up against your teammates, and nobody's out to get you. Whereas the Ottawa Red Blacks, they got a lot of guys there that are in the same boat, trying to make this team, trying to do what they can, trying to impress the coaching staff. And they're going to go after. They're going to get in your grill, and they're going to try and make you make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just felt like Morgan's passes were good, but not good enough. You know what I mean? Like he had a couple of nice ones, as I talked about. He had that outstanding pass to Charleston Rambo, and he made a phenomenal catch. But it just felt like few and far between. Like everything else was just mid, unfortunately. And you know, little mistakes here and there. But I mean, again, that's part of that's being a rookie. Part of that is not knowing the Canadian game as well, and just little correctable things, we'll call them. But still, at the end of the day, he's got to take the L. He's got to accept the fact that he didn't get the win. He didn't ensure that the Alouettes go undefeated in the preseason, if that was important to them or not. I can't say 100%, but as far as James Morgan goes, yeah, it was a solid, okay effort, but you don't win the Grey Cup with a solid, okay effort.
That's right. And also, another, this is a huge positive from that second half. The returning by Tyjon Lindsay. Oh, man.
Wow. And it's funny, they even referenced it on TSN this evening, talking about this time last year. It was James Letcher Jr. who made noise in the preseason. And what happened with him? Ended up on the practice roster, had to bide his time, wait for some injuries to happen. Chandler Worthy goes down to injury, and all of a sudden, James Letcher gets a tap on the shoulder. He's gone in, and look what he did. Especially in the latter half of the season last year, all the way up to the Grey Cup. I mean, I think Tyjon Lindsay saw that, had to have seen that, I'm sure probably even spoke with Letcher about that. He's like, if you get a chance, make some plays happen. Do what you got to do to make some plays happen. And that's exactly what Tyjon Lindsay did. And boy, oh boy, did he look really, really good.
Yeah, he really did. Also, another one of the quirks of the second half itself, and especially in that fourth quarter, Cliff, something you rarely see, in my opinion, something you rarely see in the preseason is a 16-play drive by the Owls.
Yeah. It's, it's yeah, I don't believe I've ever seen anything like that. I mean, because again, it's all about player evaluation. So, okay, I mean, I guess you got to evaluate long drives as well, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely unusual. That doesn't one of those things you don't necessarily expect to see in the preseason. Is like just a long meandering drive, marching down the field bit by bit. But I mean, I guess it's all part of the process, right? I mean, you got to learn as much as possible. Like, I actually had to laugh. I thought after or just when Ottawa had to punt the ball back with less than a minute to go, part of me was thinking, is Richie Leone going to fake the punt? I actually thought, and again, Bob Dice, the Red Blacks head coach, he's a special teams wizard. You would have been surprised to see that. I mean, especially Ottawa too is infamous for wacky things happening on special teams. As luck would have it, though, Richie Leone had a great coffin corner punt, just like Joseph Zima had earlier in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that 2 great coffin corner punts, and poor Michael Herzog. I mean, he
foot out of bounds.
Illegal participation. So that means Ottawa or Montreal had to start essentially on the 8 because of the no yards penalty, kind of offset with the illegal participation. And just again, that's one for sure that Herzog would like to have back. And he had some pretty decent runs as well. Like I know Stevie Scott got the lion's share of the reps at running back, and as I said, made his case for this team. Michael Herzog too. I mean, and I think he even returned 1 or 2 kicks, if I'm not mistaken. Another solid effort there. I mean,
yep, he did. Yeah,
I mean, this young man is something special. I think that there's a way to go. He's going to need some more seasoning. I definitely see him ending up on the practice roster for sure. But all this to say that the running back situation in Montreal, I think things are going to be okay in that regards.
I think so too. And you know what? By the way, I'm going to say this now, and I think it was an asinine comment that was made. I think on the panel post game, they were talking about how the Alouettes are having because they were going into the preview for the BC Lions Elks game, and the comment was, because they were talking about William Stanback, and then they were also talking about how the Alouettes are having problems on their third down drives tonight. And that's why you need a William Stanback. I'm thinking, it's preseason, you moron.
Who said that?
We don't have our ones in.
Was that Jim Barker who said that?
It might have been.
Oh boy. I mean, this guy.
I mean, it's like, come on.
Wow.
I mean, really.
And listen, let's not take anything away from William Stanback. I mean, you're absolutely right.
No, not at all.
He's an absolute game changer. But listen, if that was Jim Barker, did he not realize that Walter Fletcher, sorry, Joshua Nantwi, and Sean Thomas Erlington did not play in the game? Like, this wouldn't even be a discussion in a regular season game. So, but I guess you got to talk about something, right? You got to mention something when you're on the panel.
And I think they're talking specifically about the short yardage play at the end zone near the end of the game. But still, I was like, what? Where are you? What week of the season and what season are you currently thinking in? So, yeah. Let's quickly talk about the stats here. I know they don't mean much in a preseason game, but they do mean stuff to the team itself and to the coaching staff. I said a lot. The only guy that really made a name for himself 2 weeks in a row was Charleston Rambo. I mean, he had 3 receptions on 4 targets for 67 yards, did lead the team in yards. By the way, James Morgan finished 11 of 15 for 117 yards and that 1 interception and that 1 rushing touchdown.
Like I said, a very mid effort. I mean, not bad, but not outstanding. I mean, especially if you're trying to really truly make a case to crack the roster. I mean, that was okay, but the Alouettes are not looking for okay, especially as defending Grey Cup champions. You're not looking for an okay effort.
Mm-hmm. Last week's, the guy who really stood out, Ramo Jacquio Bowman, just 1 target. That's it. I just noticed, as I said, the play calling just seemed to be a little bit weird, but again, it was the quarterbacks behind center. You had Nicholas Ginron, who had 18 yards on 2 receptions. Jose Barbabone who was perfect on the night, 4 for 4 receptions for 32 yards.
He looked pretty solid too.
Yep, Jalen Wayne 16 yards. Ty John Lindsay had 15 yards. Again, I'm really curious to see who is going to be making the roster. That's why we're going to be joining you guys on Sunday to talk about all the final rosters for the 2024 Alouettes. So stay tuned for that, obviously. So stay tuned to our socials. And then rushing wise, as far as Stevie Scott had 61 yards in the day, dude, 6.8 average, very good. Michael Herzog had 30 yards himself, had 3.3 average. Caleb had 14, Caleb Evans had 14, and James Morgan had 4 yards. And by the way, I misspoke at the beginning. The Owls did have a sack in this game. Both teams ended up with a sack. So thoughts going forward, dude, because as I said, we'll be talking about, we'll be going live again on Sunday to talk about the final rosters leading into the first game. Any last thoughts before we finish up this episode of Flightdeck Live?
One of the things I was looking at in this game this evening was to see how the Alouettes 2024 draft class was going to perform. And I have to say, very solid effort from a lot of those guys. Jeffrey Conte Arcu, he was getting in people's faces and he was definitely making plays happen. True. Arthur Hamlin came this close to getting a pick.
Yep.
Absolutely outstanding. Like, this guy's motor, as I've said, is truly outstanding. Definitely. And let's not forget, he was basically playing Marc-Antoine Dequoi's position this night. He was starting in Marc-Antoine's spot as free safety. Mm-hmm. And once again, did not look out of place. Like I have to say, I'm very encouraged by what I saw there. Definitely like what I definitely think he's someone that is going to make a lot of noise in his rookie season. Frederick Antoine also got a couple of catches, looked pretty solid out there as well. Michael Herzog, we just finished talking about what we saw out of him, and not bad, but definitely someone I think that needs more reps, needs a little more seasoning, needs a chance to really show what he can do. And maybe it's just going to take it's simply a matter of time. Again, we have to remember these are rookies. This is their first taste of professional action, so we can't judge too harshly on them. But at the same time, I was expecting to see these guys really stand up and make some noise. And by and large, they did. I think just about everybody I think all the draft picks participated in this, and yeah, definitely everybody looked really solid. So I'm very happy to see that. I'm definitely happy to see a lot of the effort from a lot of the players that we mentioned tonight. Like those were guys that really had to stand up and make some noise. I was very surprised not to see Ramad Chekia Bowman. He was basically ignored all night. So
I know. And last week, Caleb, he was a pretty good target for Caleb. But then again, also Davis was in quite a bit too. So,
yep. So, and maybe it was just a simple fact that based on that outstanding game, this is a matter of, okay, well, we know what he can do. Let's see what the others can do. That could be it. But then again, Charleston Rambo, as we discussed, had a really fantastic game last week.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of love tonight. He definitely got a lot of lots of chances to show what he's able to do. And I guess it was just more to solidify that, yeah, I definitely think Rambo will be a part of the Alouettes this year. Aside from that, I mean, a lot of good things, a lot of teachable moments in this game as well. Now just comes the simple matter of, okay, there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made in the next 24 hours. And is there anyone that we can say is absolutely not going to make the team or absolutely will make the team? Honestly, no. And again, we've talked about this too, in the sense that certain players we've seen in the past, we thought, okay, they're a shoo-in, they're a lock, they're going to make this team, and then gone.
Yeah.
And actually, one thing I would like to do, and one of the things I'm looking forward to doing on Sunday, I want to see who's going to be the Reggie Stubblefield of 2024. Like, I want to see which one of the final cuts is made that is going to shock us, and which one would have the most potential of being called back and being able to do what Reggie did last year for the Alouettes.
Yeah. It is going to be fun. We've done this for the past we've done shows, I think, for the past 2 years at least on the roster, on the final rosters, but I'm gonna love doing this live. So stay tuned for the next Flight Deck Live, that special episode of Flight Deck Live coming on Sunday. So stay tuned to all of our socials for when we are going to go live. Yes, you can find us on X at Alouettes FL Deck, Facebook, Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, Instagram, and YouTube at Alouettes Flight Deck. There was a lot more today, and there's a lot more to come, more than just the Alouettes starting to replace that video board. But we'll talk about that on Wednesday.
Yes.
But yeah, so again, we appreciate you for joining us for this episode of Flight Deck Live. We'll talk to you guys on Sunday. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We'll talk to you soon.